Chapter 1. The Lake of Destiny. A journey in search of the promised land. You were born into dust and exile, a child of the wandering Mexica, a people adrift across the arid highlands of central Mexico. You have never known a homeland. Your earliest memories are of blistered feet, tattered cloths flapping in the wind, and the solemn chants of elders who gaze not at the earth, but skyward, searching for a sign. You are part of a tribe searching for something promised, something divine. The old ones tell the story every night beside flickering fires. It is the same tale your parents heard and their parents before them. Once, long ago, the Mexica were chosen by a god. Not just any god, but Huitzilopochtli, god of the sun, war, and sacrifice. He came to your ancestors in visions and dreams, demanding one thing: leave the ancestral lands. Wander the earth, find the place where a great eagle perches on a cactus, holding a serpent in its beak. There and only there would your people build a new city. There and only there would your destiny unfold. You are skeptical at first. How could such a place exist? An eagle on a cactus in the middle of a lake? It sounds like a fable, but over the years you come to feel the prophecy's weight. It molds your life like fire on obsidian. You walk with warriors, priests, women carrying children, and old, men whose eyes see further than your own. You walk through valleys of stone and up hills of ash. You sleep under thunderclouds and whisper to the stars, hoping they whisper back. Generations pass like footprints in mud. Your people settle, only to be pushed out again and again. You are scorned, unwanted by more powerful city-states. The rulers of Culhuacan mock your ragged clothing, your blood sacrifices, your refusal to bow to their gods. They call you savages. You live in swamps and margins, but the priests say, endure. The eagle will appear. It is only a matter of time. You learn to live on the move. You fish in muddy waters, cultivate maize in shallow soil, and drink from stagnant pools. You become hard. Not cruel but cold like obsidian blades, thin, sharp, and precise. It is this harsh life, the elders say, that prepares you for greatness. Huitzilopochtli does not choose the comfortable. He chooses the worthy. One night, as you camp on the shores of a shimmering lake surrounded by mountains, your high priest cries out. You rush through reeds and shallow waters until you see it. There in the morning mist, rising from a small island in the lake, an eagle perches atop a nopal cactus. Its wings stretch toward the sky, and clenched in its beak is a serpent that thrashes like a ribbon of fire. You freeze, no one speaks. Even the children understand the weight of the moment. This is it, the prophecy, the sign. The elders weep, the priests fall to their knees, and you are filled with something new. Hope, yes, but also terror. For the gods do not give without taking. You have found the land. Now you must earn the right to keep it, the island of destiny. The place is called Tenochtitlan, though it has no name yet. It is little more than a cluster of mud and reed, ringed by water and the cries of waterfowl. There are no walls, no temples, no fields, just lake and sky and faith. You wade through waist-deep waters to reach the island. It is small and choked with cacti, but the priests say this is where the gods want your city to rise. You begin the work. First, you build chinampas, floating gardens made from woven reeds, mud, and decayed vegetation. You anchor them with willows. They are like rafts of green in a lake of blue. Here you plant maize, beans, squash, and chili. You become farmers as well as warriors. The land does not welcome you with ease. It must be tamed. You build canals to allow canoes to pass between gardens and homes. You dig dikes and aqueducts. You construct causeways from stone and timber, linking the island to the mainland. It is backbreaking labor, but there is no other choice. You are surrounded by enemies, and only water separates your city from theirs. Every sunrise is a gift. Every sunset is a prayer. A new city rises. The years pass and Tenochtitlan begins to transform. What was once mud and hope becomes stone and power. You quarry volcanic rock from distant hills and carry it on your back. You raise temples, beginning with small stepped pyramids, and paint them in bright reds and whites. Your high temple, the Templo Mayor, is built at the center, dedicated to Huitzilopochtli and Tlaloc, the rain god. It is a double pyramid, one For war, one for water. One for life, one for death. You watch as warriors march up its steps to offer sacrifices. First animals, then humans. Some flinch at the blood. You do not. You understand now. Blood feeds the gods. Blood keeps the sun rising and the rains falling. You do not fear death, you respect it. It is the price of existence. Tenochtitlan grows, absorbing surrounding chinampas and extending into new artificial islands. You organize districts, Kalpuli, each with its own temple, school, and communal land. You train boys in Kalmakak if they are noble, or Telpochkali if they are common. You prepare them for war, for priesthood, or for labor. Girls learn household arts, rituals, and the sacred calendar. Everyone has a role. Everyone serves. The city hums with life. Merchants trade cacao beans, jade, obsidian, textiles, and feathers. The market of Tlatelolco becomes one of the largest in the known world. Canoes glide through canals like silent birds. Music echoes from drums and flutes. Priests read omens from stars and entrails. You no longer feel like wanderers. You are builders, warriors, chosen. The spirit of the people. The Mexica are no longer beggars on borrowed land. You are Aztec now, a name forged in pride and fear. You form alliances, subdue enemies, and establish tribute systems. But that is later. For now, you look across the lake and see the sun rise behind volcanoes. You hear the song of birds in reeds. You watch fireflies drift like stars through the mist. You are home. But you know this peace is fragile. The gods are never sated for long. And to defend this place, to preserve your rising power, you will need more than hope. You will need warriors. You will need priests. You will need blood. Your journey is just beginning. The eagle has landed. Now, you must rise. Chapter 2. Tenochtitlan. The jewel of the lake. You rise before the sun, when the lake still sleeps under a veil of mist. The city stretches before you like a vision. Canals glinting like silver threads, rooftops catching the first light of dawn, and smoke rising gently from the hearths of thousands of homes. This is no longer the patch of swamp and cactus that your ancestors claimed in faith. It is Tenochtitlan, the jewel of the valley, your beating heart. It is power carved from water and stone. You live in the capital of a people transformed. The Mexica, once mocked as vagabonds, have become rulers, warriors, priests, and artisans. You walk down stone causeways that link your island capital to the mainland. The streets are clean, swept daily. The canals are wide, navigable by canoe, shaded by trees. At the city center stands the Templo Mayor, rising above all else like a divine mountain. It is here that the gods speak. It is here that blood is given to make the sun rise. Tenochtitlan is not just a city, it is the embodiment of cosmic order. Every street, every market stall, every temple is placed according to sacred geometry. The four cardinal directions are marked by temples and avenues. At the very center lies the Axis Mundi, the spiritual navel of the world, where heaven and earth connect. You feel it as you walk the sacred precinct. This is not a place made for mortals alone. A day in the sacred city. You begin your day like many others. A drum sounds in the distance, echoing from the temple towers. You offer a pinch of copal to the hearth and whisper a prayer to Huitzilopochtli. Then you step outside and board your family's canoe, gliding through the canal toward the market of Tlatelolco. The market is immense, larger than anything you've ever seen. Tens of thousands gather here daily. Merchants shout prices for goods: cacao, beans, turquoise cotton cloth, dried chilies, obsidian blades, jaguar pelts, and golden trinkets. You smell roasted maize, fresh tamales, and cacao drink. You see judges seated beneath awnings, resolving disputes with the authority of the Tlatoani's law. You trade goods or labor for what your family needs. No coin passes hands. Your currency is tribute and barter. You give thanks that your city has everything. Food is abundant from the chinampas. Potable water flows through aqueducts. Engineers and priests ensure the balance of supply and demand. You wonder if the gods smile on this place. Above the bustle looms the Templo Mayor, its twin shrines always smoking. The blue-tiled shrine is for Tlaloc, god of rain, giver of maize. The red-painted shrine is for Huitzilopochtli, the war god, thirsty for blood. On festival days, the Great Pyramid becomes a stairway of sacrifice, where captives are led to meet their fate. You have seen it yourself. Hearts cut from chests, held skyward while still beating. You do not flinch anymore. You understand the necessity. Without sacrifice, the sun would not rise. Without blood, the crops would not grow. Without ritual, the gods would turn their faces away, and all would be lost. Society of order and discipline, you were born into a society where everyone has a role, and each role serves the whole. Your place in life was not chosen by chance, but by sacred duty. If you are born noble, you attend the Karmakak, where priests and scholars teach you to read the sacred books, to study astronomy, calendar cycles, theology, and law. You may become a priest, a scribe, or a general. If you are common born, you enter the Telpochkali. There, from a young age, you learn endurance, discipline, and war. You carry heavy bundles, rise before dawn, and fast for days. You learn to throw the atlatl, wield the makuahuitl, a wooden sword inlaid with obsidian, and march long distances, without complaint. Girls are trained in the home, but their roles are no less vital. They grind maize, weave cloth, care for children, and tend altars. In your society, womanhood is a sacred force, likened to warriors, for childbirth is its own kind of battle. A woman who dies in childbirth is honored like a man who dies in war. Merchants, Pochteka, hold a special place. They travel far, bringing exotic goods from distant lands. But they are also spies for the Tlatoani, the ruler, and their information can determine war or peace. Artisans, feather workers, goldsmiths, and sculptors are revered for their ability to capture divine beauty. A perfect headdress made from quetzal feathers can earn as much glory as a warrior's captured enemy. And at the top of this great order is the Tlatoani, the speaker, your king. He is more than a ruler. He is the voice of the gods. He oversees not only war and tribute, but the harmony of the cosmos itself. The first empire builders, your city does not rise in isolation. Around the lake lie other powers, Texcoco, Tlacopan, and more ancient cities like Cholula and Tlaxcala. The Valley of Mexico is a web of alliances, enmities, and tribute, but things are changing. Your ruler, Itzcoatl, leads the Mexica to war. He forms an alliance with Texcoco and Tlacopan. This triple alliance becomes the engine of expansion. For the first time, your warriors do not merely defend, they conquer. They take tribute, capture prisoners, demand loyalty. You fight in flowery wars. Ritual battles meant not just to defeat, but to capture. Prisoners are brought back to Tenochtitlan to feed the gods. You march under banners of red and gold, cheered by crowds. War becomes sacred theater. You begin to see what the priests have long known: blood is currency, tribute is power, and Tenochtitlan must sit at the center of it all. You take tribute from hundreds of cities: cotton, cacao, jade, slaves, and warriors. You grow rich. You build larger temples, wider causeways, deeper canals. Your engineers rival the gods. Your scholars track Venus and Mars. Your calendar is precise to the day. You are no longer just a city in a lake. You are the sun itself, a world of signs and omens, but even at the height of glory, you remain a people of vision and prophecy. Your calendar tells you that every 52 years, the world is in danger of ending. At the end of each cycle, fires are extinguished. Hearts are torn from chests. The new fire ceremony rekindles the sun. You read the skies for signs. A comet is no longer just a celestial event. It is a message. A child born with deformities is an omen. A crop that fails may signal the displeasure of Tlaloc. You live in a world alive with meaning. Dreams matter. The dreams of priests shape policy. The dreams of rulers can determine war. You remember vividly the night the Tlatoani dreamed of the eagle again, its feathers falling, its wings broken. The priests conferred for days. Some believed it a warning, others said it was a promise. Your city continues to grow, but you begin to wonder, can anything grow forever? Can a pyramid stretch into the heavens without shaking the earth? The price of glory, you have achieved greatness, but at a cost. Your neighbors fear you. Your enemies multiply. Tlaxcala, the fierce republic to the east, refuses your rule. They fight like jaguars, tooth and claw. They ambush your caravans, burn your outposts and poison your wells. You send army after army, but they fight with a fury that humbles you. You also begin to see unrest at home. Some fear that the gods have grown greedy. Others whisper of rot beneath the stone, of rulers who forget humility, of priests too hungry for blood. You know that glory and ruin are twins, always born together. But today, the lake sparkles in the sun. The causeways hum with footsteps. The drums beat steadily, and the wind carries the scent of maize and honey across the water. You are Aztec. You are eternal. For now. Chapter 3. Empire of Blood and Tribute. You stand at the summit of the Templo Mayor, your chest heaving from the climb. Beneath your feet, the city stretches in all directions, rows of gleaming white buildings, teeming markets, wide canals and causeways cutting across the lake like ribbons of stone. Beyond the city, you see the Valley of Mexico wrapped in clouds and green, dotted with towns that send tribute to your capital. And far beyond them, mountains hide yet more cities, cities soon to be claimed. This is your empire now, or rather, it is Huitzilopochtli's. You are a warrior of Tenochtitlan, a chosen servant of the sun. But more than that, you are a cog in a vast and growing machine of power, war, and tribute. Your empire, barely a century old, has reached its claws far, beyond the lakeshores. It has become a living god that feeds on the labor, fear, and blood of those beneath it. The mechanics of empire is not built by stone and blood alone. It is sustained by order, by records and tribute rolls, by merchants and messengers. You understand now that the Aztec world is not merely a patchwork of conquered cities. It is a system, a machine designed to feed Tenochtitlan with goods, captives, and glory. Each province pays tribute, a regular offering of cotton, maize, cacao beans, gold dust, jade, obsidian, animal skins, weapons, and slaves. It is all recorded in painted codices, bundles of cloth, bundles of food, counts of warriors, measurements of land. You know the tribute lists well. You've escorted merchants to distant cities to collect them. The quantities are staggering. Some cities pay because they fear your armies. Others pay because they were offered a choice, tribute or annihilation. Still others were never defeated in battle at all, but were tied into your web through diplomacy, bribery, or the promise of protection. But not all conquered peoples accept their place. Rebellion simmers always. So your empire sends tax collectors, Kalpixka, to oversee payments. They are watched by officials who report to the emperor himself. Behind them march warriors, a reminder of what failure brings. You are told that empire is balance. That to keep the sun moving across the sky, order must be maintained. But you also know what happens when a city misses a payment. You've stood in burnt towns. You've marched captives back to the capital. You've watched them climb the temple, steps in chains. The warrior's path from your earliest memories, you were told that war was sacred. It is not just a contest of strength, it is a divine duty. Huitzilopochtli was born in battle, and so must his people be. You remember your first campaign clearly. The march through forests toward a rebellious town, the thump of drums, the painted faces, the chants, and then the charge. Victory is not merely measured by survival or conquest. It is measured in captives. For every enemy you capture alive, your glory grows. Bring back 4, and you are granted the right to wear a jaguar's skin or an eagle's feathers. Bring back more, and you may join the Quachique, the shorn ones, elite warriors who vow never to take a step backward in battle. You have walked among them, their heads shaved save for a single braid, their bodies painted with ochre and black. They laugh in the face of death. You once saw one leap alone into a circle of enemies, laughing as arrows pierced his chest. He died with a smile. You dream of reaching that glory, and yet, when you look into the eyes of your bound captives, you sometimes wonder, do they see you as noble or monstrous? Do they believe your gods are real, or do they see only butchers in gold and feathers? You don't ask. You do what is needed. You know that every drop of blood spilled upon the altar strengthens the sun. Without your hand, the world would freeze. The rule of Ahuitzotl. You live now under the rule of Ahuitzotl, 8th Tlatoani of Tenochtitlan, and perhaps the greatest of them all. He is fierce, tireless, a conqueror by blood and bone. Under his hand, the empire has expanded faster than ever before. Ahuitzottl's wars stretch far to the south, into the jungles of Oaxaca and the shores of the Pacific. He subdues the Mixtecs, the Zapotecs, even the distant Huastecs. He builds fortresses and roads. He leaves behind garrisons and governors, and with every conquest he sends captives back to the city. When the Templo Mayor is rebuilt and expanded to its greatest height, Ahuitzotl commands a ceremony like no other. You were there. You remember. The numbers whispered in awe. Over 80,000 prisoners sacrificed over 4 days and nights. You saw the blood run down the steps like rain. You saw the priests collapse from exhaustion. You saw the emperor stand at the summit, his arms raised. In triumph, some say it was a lie, that the number was inflated, that the blood couldn't have flowed that fast, but you were there. You remember the smell, you remember the screams, you remember the silence when it was all over. Ahuitzotl rules not just by might, but by fear and awe. He builds aqueducts, expands the empire's reach, and refashions the capital. He is a builder of both empire and myth. You are proud to serve under him, and yet you begin to feel something else too. A tremor beneath the stone. The web of resistance with each new conquest. Tribute flows into Tenochtitlan like blood into a heart, but you can feel the strain. In the distant provinces, rebellion stirs. Cities rise in revolt only to be crushed and burned. Warriors are stretched thinner each year. Roads are long, terrain treacherous. Some conquered people feign loyalty while secretly plotting revenge. You once traveled to the edge of empire, where the forests grew thick and wet. There, among the hills, you found villages that had never seen the capital. They mocked your feathered banners. They refused your gifts. When your commander demanded tribute, they vanished into the trees. You hunted them for days, found only traps and whispers. You lost friends. You lost pride. When you returned, empty-handed, your superior said nothing. But you knew that failure would not be forgotten. Empire breeds resentment. You feel it. Even among the allied cities, Texcoco and Tlacopan, there is tension. They share power with Tenochtitlan, but not equally. Most tribute flows to you. Most glory is yours. Some among them whisper of imbalance. Even the Tlaxcalans, your eternal rivals, remain unconquered. Despite decades of war, their stubborn republic holds firm. You respect them, fear them even. They fight like cornered beasts with honor and rage. They are the mirror of your own people, bloodthirsty, proud, sacred. You begin to wonder, how long can an empire grow before it chokes itself? The heartbeat of ritual. But even in the face of challenge, ritual sustains you. The calendar guides your days, the Tonalpohualli of 260 sacred days, and the Xiupohualli, the 365-day solar year. Priests interpret omens. Astrologers name lucky days for planting, for battle, for marriage. You live in a world where nothing is random. Every illness has a cause, every eclipse a meaning, every birthdate a destiny. You were born on a day ruled by crocodile and wind. The priests told you it meant you were stubborn and clever, a survivor. Ritual is not separate from power. It is its foundation. The Tlatoani must fast, pray, sacrifice, and speak with the gods. The priest must cleanse their bodies, pierce their skin, bleed themselves in the darkness. The city must feed the gods daily in small and large ways. You give offerings, flowers, incense, food, but on feast days, the gods demand more. The heart of empire is a beating heart. The gods must never be hungry. Echoes in the horizon day. As you stand on the temple steps watching the city breathe, a strange thought creeps in. You imagine what it would be like if this all vanished. If the canals were dry, the temples empty, the people silent. You shake the thought away. This city is eternal. The gods favor you. The sun rises still. The tribute flows. The warriors return with captives. The empire expands. And yet, somewhere, beyond the mountains, beyond the sea, beyond the reach of your maps, something approaches. You do not know it yet, but the sky is already beginning to darken. Chapter 4. The arrival of the strangers from the sea. You are standing guard along the western causeway when the first whispers arrive. Rumors carried by traders, feather merchants, and fishermen. They speak of tall beings with skin like ash, faces hidden behind metal masks, and thunder in their hands. They arrive not on foot, but on floating mountains that moved without oars, carried by the breath of the gods. You dismiss it at first. Tales from the coast are always fantastical, but these stories refuse to die. They spread from Tlatelolco to the emperor's court, from temple steps to farmers' huts. Soon, even the priests begin watching the eastern horizon with wary eyes. And then comes the omen. Lightning strikes the temple of Huitzilopochtli on a cloudless day. Fire burns in the skies. A strange glow dances over Lake Texcoco at night. You remember the trembling voice of the high priest. He calls it a sign. The gods are warning you. A great change is coming. Something terrible rides the winds. You grip, your obsidian blade tighter. What power could shake the hearts of the gods? Visions of return your emperor at the time is Moctezuma Xocoyotzin, the 9th Tlatoani of Tenochtitlan, and a man unlike his warlike predecessor, Ahuitzotl. Where Ahuitzotl ruled with fire and conquest, Moctezuma is cautious, deeply religious, a thinker plagued by omens. You have seen him often, tall, solemn, richly adorned, his face painted with black stripes of penance. He walks slowly through the palaces, eyes turned always toward the sky. His advisors speak of his fasts, his sleepless nights, his consultations with diviners and sages. Moctezuma believes the strangers may be more than men. Some whisper he fears they are gods, or the return of one god in particular, Quetzalcoatl. The feathered serpent, lord of wisdom and wind, exiled long ago, promised to return one day from the east. And now from the east come pale-faced beings on floating temples, bearing beasts never seen before and metal that turns blades aside. You are not sure what to believe, but your world is beginning to tilt. The first encounter in the year 1 read. The strangers come ashore. They land at the coast of the Totonac people near the place called Chempoala. They call themselves Spaniards, a name foreign to your tongue. Their leader is named Hernan Cortes, and he brings with him less than 600 warriors, strange armor, fire-breathing weapons, towering beasts called horses, and a priest who speaks of a single god. They do not arrive as conquerors, at least not at first. Cortes speaks through interpreters, first through a captured Maya speaker, and then through a woman named Malinali, whom you will come to know as La Malinche. She speaks Nahuatl. Through her tongue, their words become magic. They form alliances. Quickly, the Totonacs welcome them, eager for revenge against the tribute-hungry Mexica. Cortes learns your customs, your gods, your weaknesses. He sends gifts to Moctezuma, glass beads, iron tools, even a carved throne, and in return Moctezuma sends gold, not as tribute, as hospitality. But it is the first mistake. Cortes sees the gold and says one thing: this is the land where riches grow. A web of betrayal. You are sent south as part of a diplomatic mission to investigate. You see the Spaniards with your own eyes, metal-skinned, bearded, with dogs the size of jaguars and thunder tubes that crack the air and fell trees. You watch one of them mount a beast that gallops like the wind. You have never feared another human in battle before. But these are not humans. They are something else. Your companions argue. Should they be welcomed or destroyed? Moctezuma debates endlessly. He fears provoking the wrath of gods or opening the gates to devils. At last, he allows them to approach. He sends messengers with gifts, gold, cloaks, cacao, jade. He begs them not to come further inland, but the gifts only awaken hunger. Cortes burns his own ships to prevent retreat. He marches inland. With him march enemies of the empire, Totonacs, Kempolans, and soon even the mighty Tlaxcalans, your old rivals. Cortes defeats them in battle, then wins them with diplomacy. He promises them revenge. He promises an end to the tribute and sacrifice. In secret, many of your enemies join him. He marches not as a guest, but as a gathering storm. Journey to the capital Moctezuma, still uncertain whether Cortes is man or god, allows him to approach. He sends out priests, dancers, musicians to welcome him. You are stationed on the southern causeway when the strangers arrive. They march with precision, banners held high, horses stomping, their allies in long lines behind them. You expect Moctezuma to drive them back, but instead, he walks out to greet Cortes himself, dressed in finest jade and quetzal feathers. You remember the moment, how he bows slightly, offers flowers, necklaces, sacred speech, and Cortés embraces him. A foreign gesture. Some say that Moctezuma welcomed him as a god, others say he welcomed him as a captive. No one can agree. But from that moment on, the heart of the empire begins to darken. The taking of the emperor. The Spaniards are given lodging in one of the great palaces near the Templo Mayor. Moctezuma visits daily, offers them feasts, interpreters, translators, gold. They speak politely. They explore the city. But then the unimaginable happens. One night, with swords drawn and allies at their back, Cortés takes Moctezuma prisoner in his own palace. You are asleep when it happens. When you awaken, the city is buzzing. Priests are outraged. Nobles gather in secret, but no one dares act, not yet. Moctezuma continues to rule publicly, though his hands are tied in gold chains. Through him, Cortés demands tribute. Gold pours into their hands. They melt it into bars, discard the artistry. You feel rage rise in your throat. You remember the words of your ancestors. Better to die on the stone than live as a slave. But still, Moctezuma says nothing, and the people wait. The massacre at the festival, it happens during the Feast of Toxcatl, one of the most sacred in the Aztec calendar. You are not present inside the Templo Mayor, but you hear the drums, you hear the flutes. Dancers whirl in feathers, men chant the name of Tezcatlipoca, the smoking mirror. The square is alive with light, and then screams. The Spaniards, fearing rebellion, rush into the temple courtyard with weapons drawn. They block the exits. They butcher unarmed dancers. Blood flows not as sacrifice, but as slaughter. Flutes turn to gurgles. The temple is red with betrayal. You hear it all from the palace walls. You see priests fleeing, mothers crying, warriors howling with rage. The spell is broken. The people rise. The siege begins. The city transforms overnight. You join your brothers and sisters on the rooftops, in the temples, along the canals. Warriors in jaguar skins, women with slings, boys with stones. The bridges are cut, the causeways sealed, the foreigners are trapped. They try to use Moctezuma to calm the storm. He stands on the rooftop of the palace, calling for peace. But something has broken in the people. You do not listen. Rocks fly, spears are thrown. A stone cracks the emperor's skull. That night Moctezuma dies, and you are no longer afraid. Cortés prepares to flee the city, but not before the lake takes its due. La Noche Triste, the night of sorrows on. A moonless night during heavy rain, the Spaniards attempt to escape. They load their backs with stolen gold, march silently through the western causeway. But you are waiting. The alarm is raised. Canoes swarm the lake. Bridges collapse beneath their feet. Arrows fly from rooftops. Fire ignites the sky. You hear the screams, the thunder of hooves falling into water, the splash of drowning men. It is said that hundreds die, Spaniards, horses, allies. Many are pulled beneath the waves by their own greed, drowning under the weight of Aztec gold. You catch one yourself. His armor glints in the lightning. You remember the look in his eyes, fear, confusion, disbelief. He came as a god. He dies as a man. You feel hope returning. Perhaps the invaders will vanish like a bad dream. But you are wrong. This is not the end. This is only the beginning. Chapter 5. The Fall of the Gods. The morning after the Night of Sorrows, you walk among the causeways littered with metal corpses, broken crossbows, shattered helmets, and hunks of cursed gold that glitter like the eyes of fallen gods. The lake still swallows secrets. Bodies float like lilies. The air smells of smoke, iron, and vengeance. You do not celebrate. Not yet. Because something gnaws at the edge of your spirit. You know war is not a single blow. It is a tide, and tides return, and this tide will rise again, rebuilding and warnings Tenochtitlan. Breathes again. You, like thousands of others, sweep the city clean. The palaces are reclaimed, the Templo Mayor is purified with incense and blood offerings. The city mourns Moctezuma, though many no longer call him emperor nor martyr. Cuitlahuac, his brother, is crowned Tlatoani. Where Moctezuma hesitated, Cuitlahuac is decisive. He calls the city to arms, sends messengers across the valley. For the first time in decades, the tribute flows not to Tenochtitlan but from it, outward to allies, to enemies alike, buying warriors, oaths, and obsidian blades. The city transforms into a fortress. Causeways are reinforced, canoes are carved. In the thousands, slingstones are sharpened, arrowheads dipped in poison, priests redouble their prayers. Day and night you train, on rooftops, in canals, beside temple steps. You build walls, dig trenches, construct wooden palisades to trap the horses. You remember the Spaniards' thunder. You fashion shields of padded cotton soaked in salt water to resist their shots. You study how they march, how they fear night, how they cannot swim. You prepare traps in the canals and bridges. Tenochtitlan will not fall easily again. But news begins to drift in, news that chills your blood. Cortés survived. He fled east to Tlaxcala, where your ancient enemies gave him sanctuary. There, while you rebuild, he regathers, and he is not alone. A new weapon, death unseen. The first signs are subtle. A merchant from the coast falls ill, fevered, red-eyed, unable to breathe. Then another and another. Within a week, entire families are found dead in their homes, bodies covered in blisters like burst maize kernels. Eyes swollen shut, skin black with infection. It is not poison nor curse. It is something worse. A plague. You don't have a name for it. But it spreads with invisible breath. Faster than runners, faster than the Spaniards' horses. By the time you realize what's happening, it is already everywhere. Smallpox. You watch your neighbors fall. Warriors, priests, nobles, even Cuitlahuac himself. One by one they collapse, feverish, blistered, delirious. Entire districts burn to stop the spread. You are ordered to wear masks of soaked cloth, to bury bodies at dawn and dusk. You offer sacrifices to the gods. Still, they do not listen. They too, it seems, are coughing. When the sun rises on the first day of the dry season, your city is half empty. There are not enough warriors to patrol every wall. The lake is quiet. The invaders are returning. The return of the enemy Cortés comes back with more than Tlaxcalans and Spaniards. He returns with cavalry, war dogs, and artillery, but also thousands of warriors from tribes long crushed under Mexica tribute. He brings ships, disassembled in secret and carried across mountains, now reassembled on the lake's shore. Brigantines, they're called, floating monsters with sails and cannons built to dominate water. You watch from a temple rooftop as they launch. For the first time you understand even the lake is no longer yours. They can strike from the water now. They surround Tenochtitlan, cutting off food, water, allies. They block every causeway. They raid every Chinampa farm. You see smoke from distant towns, villages that refuse to surrender, now ash. You wonder, are the gods blind? But still, the city resists. Day after day, week after week, you fight. On canoes, in alleys, through narrow temples. You wear no armor, you move like shadows. You strike in the night and vanish by dawn. Cortés tries to storm the city. You push them back. He sends emissaries to demand surrender. Your emperor, now Cuauhtémoc, the young eagle, refuses. You remember his voice, fierce as obsidian. This is the home of the Mexica. We will die on our stones before yielding to strangers. And so you keep fighting, even as the lake turns red, even as the city begins to starve. The siege of Tenochtitlanite lasts for months. The enemy is patient, methodical, cruel. They cut the aqueducts, they poison wells, they raze neighborhoods one by one, advancing block by block. They torch granaries, they seize prisoners, men, women, children, and hurl them back dismembered, bloodied, broken. Still you fight. You eat rats, insects, bark. You chew wet cloth to trick your stomach. You burn furniture for warmth. You drink water from canals black with rot and blood. You fight with broken blades, with fists, with stones. Every dawn brings more dead. But every night you hear the drum. From the Templo Mayor. Boom, boom, boom. Your heart answers it because this is your home. The last stand, you are stationed in the heart of the city now, near the sacred precinct. You no longer remember how many days have passed. Your arms ache, your skin is blistered, your belly hollow, but your spirit burns. You watch as the Spaniards blow open temples with cannon fire, trample shrines with horses, turn sacred lakes into dumping pits. You scream as they burn the Karmakak, the ancient school where you learned the stories of your gods. You cry when the Templo Maya cracks under fire. You roar when they seize the Tzompantli and laugh at the skulls. You are Mexica. You will not die with silence in your throat. Cuauhtémoc gathers the last of you. Children wield slings. Elders bear blades. Women fight beside men. The palace is turned into a final barricade. You prepare for the end not with despair, but with defiance. And then, on August 13, 1521, the last barrier is broken. The Spanish pour into the city center. Fires blaze. Smoke blinds you. Screams fill the sky. You see Cuauhtémoc, wounded but still fighting. He charges through the square. He kills a horseman. He is dragged to the ground. You run to him. You are too late. He is taken in chains. Tenochtitlan falls. The silence after fire. You kneel in the ashes, blade still clenched. No one moves to kill you. They don't need to. The war is over. The city once called the Venice of the New World, the city of the gods, lies in ruin. Temples shattered, palaces gutted, canals clogged with corpses, the lake stained. You weep, not for your life, but for your people. The Spaniards erect a cross over the ruins. They call it Mexico City. They crown it with a church. They declare it the capital of a new empire. They write in their books that they brought civilization. You know the truth. They brought fire. They brought steel. They brought death. And yet, something remains. The spirit endures. In the years that follow, the world changes. Temples become churches. Codices are burned. Your language is banned. Your gods are mocked. The drum falls silent, but you do not vanish. You whisper your stories in the dark. You paint the old gods on hidden walls. You teach your children the names. Eye of the stars, the meaning of sacrifice, the power of corn. You remember Cuauhtémoc not as a prisoner, but as a flame. You remember Tenochtitlan not as rubble, but as a dream. Because even when empires fall, the soul of a people endures. And one day perhaps the gods will rise again. Chapter 6. Life after the empire. The fire has died. The drum is silent, but you are still here. You wake not in a palace, but in the rubble of what once was Tenochtitlan. The sky is the same, but everything beneath it has changed. Your gods are buried beneath the stones. Your emperor is chained. Your temples are broken, your lake polluted, your songs forbidden, and yet you still breathe. You are Mexica, born of maize and sun, shaped by obsidian and stone. And this is your world now, the world after the empire, a new order. Rises, it begins slowly, like rot in a fallen tree. The Spaniards erect their crosses over the Templo Maya's ruins. They do not bother to sweep the blood off the steps. They simply build their church over the bones of your gods, as if to erase them with bricks. You watch them carve up the city, stone by stone, altar by altar. The canals are filled with rubble, the chinampas drained. The sacred precinct becomes a plaza. The lake is shrinking, drying, choking on dust and refuse. What was once your heart becomes their capital, Ciudad de Mexico. They call themselves conquistadors, but now they are landlords, governors, priests. They fight over gold, land, and slaves. Their words are sharp and foreign. Cristianos, they say Virgen, infierno, pecado. You learn them because you must. They say your gods are demons. They say your language is a sin. They say your children must forget everything you knew. You do not forget. The price of survival, you are forced to labor. The Spaniards hand out encomiendas, land grants that include the people living on them. You and your kin are given to a bearded man from Extremadura who knows nothing of the land, who smells like sweat and wine. He calls you Indio, as if it were your name. You work his fields. You cut sugarcane until your hands bleed. You carry stone. For his house, water for his horses. He beats your brother for praying to Huitzilopochtli in secret. He baptizes your children and gives them new names. You bury your customs behind your teeth. Your old calendar is gone. You mark time by their saints' days now. They speak of a God who died on a cross, not as a warrior, but as a sacrifice. You try to understand. You see flickers of your own. Faith in their rituals, the smoke, the incense, the blood, the offerings. But theirs is a God of guilt. Yours was a God of balance. Still, you kneel in their churches. Still you survive. Hidden flames, at night, you whisper the old names. Quetzalcoatl, Tezcatlipoca, Coatlicue, Zypetotec. You do not dare say them aloud. You chant them beneath your breath like a secret prayer. Your grandmother keeps a tiny statue hidden in a clay pot buried beneath her home. She lights candles in the old way, murmurs chants from memory. Your uncle carves glyphs into wood, calling, "It art so no priest suspects." Your mother teaches your children the old dances, pretending it is just play. You become two people. By day, you speak Spanish and cross yourself before meals. By night, you chant and weep and remember who you are. They think they've erased you. They've only driven you underground. You are not gone. You are waiting. Cuauhtémoc's shadow. They hanged your emperor, Cuauhtémoc, in the jungles of Honduras, accusing him of treason and rebellion. But to you, he is more than a name. He is the last eagle, the flame that never went out. You carve his image into temple stones. You paint his face on market cloths. You name your sons after him and tell them to walk with pride. He is your ghost, your oath, your memory. He reminds you that empire may fall, but identity can outlive fire. The blood memory. You remember how to grow maize the way your ancestors did, aligning the seeds with the stars. You remember how to build canoes, how to chant the poetry of spring, how to make paint from cochineal and obsidian dust. The invaders take your gold, but not your corn. They take your empire, but not your knowledge. You become the keepers of the land. The Chinampas still feed you. The sun still follows its ancient path. And in every seed you plant, every tortilla you shape, every child you name, you pass on a piece of what was stolen. It is not empire. It is not glory. But it is resistance. Children of two worlds, your grandchildren speak both Nahuatl and Spanish. They wear cotton tunics and iron crosses. They recite the Lord's Prayer and hum the songs of the jaguar priests. They walk the line between two worlds, the shattered and the new. Some believe they must choose. You teach them they do not. They are not Spaniards. They are not the ghosts of an empire. They are something new. Mexican, born from fire and blood, sun and cross. You watch them grow, their faces carved with the angles of the old nobility and the beards of the new invaders. You hear them ask questions. Who are we? What was Tenochtitlan? Why do we pray to gods we do not know? You tell them the stories of eagles and serpents, of temples and lakes, of gods that once walked beside men. You tell them of a city on the water, and they listen. Echoes in the stone centuries pass. The empire of Spain fades like a candle in the storm. New flags rise, new revolutions burn. The people rebel again, not against gods, but against kings. The land itself trembles with voices long silenced. In time, the conqueror's blood mixes with your own. In time, your memory becomes the soul of a nation. Historians dig through ruins. Archaeologists unearth the bones of your temples. Tourists walk the streets of Mexico City, never knowing they tread on sacred ground. Beneath their feet lies your city, your empire, your story. Still alive, still remembered, still yours. And then one day a young boy visits the Templo Mayor excavation. He touches the stone, closes his eyes and sees what you saw. The gleaming white steps, the red-streaked Falta, the eagle devouring the serpent, the lake shining under the noon sun. He doesn't know why he weeps, but he does because some things are never truly lost. The soul of the empire you live on, not as a ruler but as a whisper in the maize fields, not as a warrior but as a rhythm in the dancer's footfall, not as a god but as a story told under starlight. The Aztec Empire is gone, but the Mexica spirit remains, reclaimed in murals, honored in poetry, resurrected in resistance. You are the blood of Cuauhtémoc. You are the flame of Tenochtitlan. You are the shadow of Huitzilopochtli. You are not forgotten. And so long as the sun rises over the Valley of Mexico, so long as the eagle lands on the cactus and devours the snake, so long as there is memory, you endure. Chapter 7. The Heart Beneath Mexico City. You walk the streets of Mexico City, but your feet know the truth. Beneath the car horns, the concrete, and the smog lies another city, older, deeper, still alive in memory. You can feel it sometimes, if the light hits right or if you listen in the silence between church bells. A whisper, a pulse. It is Tenochtitlan, and it is not gone. It is buried, but even buried hearts can beat. A city within a city. In the 20th century, something strange happens. Men, in hard hats and orange vests, dig near the Metropolitan Cathedral. They're laying electric cables, planning new sewers, ordinary things. But their shovels strike stone that isn't supposed to be there. Not Spanish, not colonial. Older, rougher, sacred. They hit the Koyogsuki stone, a massive disc carved with the decapitated body of the moon goddess. You recognize her immediately. She lies in fragments, but her story is intact. The sun god Huitzilopochtli cut her down. Her death gave rise to the cosmos. The workers step back. The city freezes. Archaeologists arrive with brushes instead of picks, cameras instead of guns. They begin to dig, not to erase but to remember. They have found the Templo Mayor. Excavation of the forgotten layer by layer, they peel back the centuries. Beneath the colonial plaza lies your sacred precinct, the twin temples to Tlaloc and Huitzilopochtli, the skull racks, the ceremonial courtyards, the serpent heads that once roared in color and song. This is not a ruin. This is a resurrection. You see the bones of your city, the spine of your empire, rising from under asphalt and concrete. You see school children peering through glass at obsidian blades. You see elderly women cry as they recognize the gods they were told never to name. And for the first time in 500 years, you see your world given voice in public. The empire that was silenced now speaks. Through stone, through ash, through memory. The battle of narratives, but not everyone is ready to listen. For centuries, the Aztec legacy was told by outsiders. Spaniards painted you as savages, obsessed with blood and fear. European historians reduced your empire to temples and sacrifices. Even in textbooks, you were footnotes. Your achievements measured only in violence. You were the other, the primitive, the barbarian. Now as the Templo Mayor re-emerges, so does the battle for meaning. Some want to reclaim your story as one of science and agriculture, of calendar mastery and philosophy. Others still insist your temples were abominations. Some call you ancestors. Others call you monsters. You realize that legacy is a war that never ends. And so you join the fight, not with obsidian clubs, but with words, with truth, with memory. You tell your story in your own tongue. You paint it on the walls of schools and buses. You teach your children to say Mexico with pride. You are not a victim of history. You are its author. The echoes of the gods as they dig, they find offerings, thousands of them. Coral from distant oceans, jade from Chiapas, rubber balls, starfish, serpents carved from greenstone, clay incense burners still black with soot, miniature obsidian blades. Dolls with wide eyes and tiny hands. These were your prayers. These were your bridges between earth and sky. They lay them out in museums, but you know they belong elsewhere. In the light of the morning sun, at the foot of a temple, on a lake's edge, where chants echo and flowers fall like rain. Still, the gods whisper through them. Coatlicue, the mother of gods found beneath the national palace, rises again, her image terrifying, sublime, divine. The Spanish priests once buried her because she frightened them. Now she frightens again, not with blood, but with truth. She is not evil. She is life and death intertwined. The people begin to understand. The people's reclamation. Something shifts. Murals bloom across city walls, painted by hands that remember. You see Cuauhtémoc's eyes, staring out over highways. You see Huitzilopochtli rising from the chest of a young boy. You see Xochitl, the flower goddess, cradling a market basket beside a metro station. You hear Nahuatl in the marketplace again. You hear Aztec poetry set to guitars and drums. You hear school children chant the names of emperors once defamed, Moctezuma, Itzcoatl, Nezahualcoyotl, not as villains, but as visionaries. You walk past a tourist guide pointing to the temple ruins and calling it a cultural site. But a boy next to you whispers to his friend, "This was our capital." And that one sentence is worth more than 1,000 plaques. You smile, because Tenochtitlan is not gone. It is in their blood. A country of ghosts and seeds, Mexico, the nation born from revolution and struggle, is built over a foundation of gods and warriors. Every celebration, every candle lit on Dia de los Muertos, every embroidered blouse and tamale carries traces of you. The food is your food: maize, chile, beans, cacao. The colors are your colors: turquoise, obsidian, red. The soul of the land is your soul. Even the eagle and snake on the Mexican flag, do they know? That they are your vision, your omen, your sign from Huitzilopochtli? Of course they know. Your symbol flies over stadiums and embassies. Your empire, they said, had fallen, but it rose again. Not in conquest, in culture, in heart, in memory. Modern Mexico. There are those now who call themselves Neo-Mexica. They wear headbands, dance in plazas, blow conch shells and chant in Nahuatl. Some mock them, call it performance, but you do not. You see in them the same fire that once lit temple tops. They dig into codices, resurrect languages, revive old calendars. They teach others to count not by Gregorian months, but by Tonalpohualli. They wear turquoise necklaces. They call on Tonatiuh when they greet the morning sun. They do not pretend the past was perfect, but they insist that it matters. They carry your blood not in DNA alone, but in intention. They are not actors. They are continuity. They are memory made. Flesh, they are you reborn. The heart beats. On Tenochtitlan's stones may lie under pavement, but your heart still beats beneath the dust. Every step taken on Avenida Madero, every footprint near Zocalo treads upon your bones. But bones do not lie idle. They remember. They wait. They whisper. And someday, when enough voices rise, when enough hearts awaken, the city will no longer be buried. It will rise, not in war, not in conquest, but in truth. You are Tenochtitlan, not a ruin, not a myth, a heart, still alive, still beating, and now, the world is beginning to hear it. Chapter 8. The Codices and the Flames. You sit in the darkness with a book that no longer exists. The pages crackle, but not from age. They crackle because they are burning. Ink runs like blood across skin-thin sheets. The words twist in pain. The gods scream from the margins. Stories vanish mid-sentence, and in that fire, centuries of memory are reduced to smoke. This is the fate of your codices. They were not just books, they were you. And now, they are ash. The codices. Memory made visible. You remember the codices as they once were vivid, sacred, alive. They were painted on a mattle, a paper made from fig tree bark, or on stretched deerskin polished until it gleamed like the moon. They folded like accordions, stretching out across tables or altars, long enough to hold a world. You, the tlaquilo, the scribe, held a delicate brush made from rabbit hair. You dipped it in crushed pigments, cochineal for red, indigo for blue, obsidian for black. With a steady hand, you traced the lifelines of the universe. You painted not letters but symbols, living glyphs that danced and sang. Each codex was a mirror of the world. A map of the heavens, a genealogy of rulers, a prophecy, a prayer, a history written not in words alone but in shapes, colors and rhythm. They were read aloud, performed with drums and chants. They were memory made visible. They were sacred, and so they were feared. The conquistadors' fear of the written world. The Spaniards came with their own books, leather-bound Bibles, Latin inscriptions, crosses pressed in gold. But they looked at your codices with suspicion. These were not books, they said, but sorcery, and so they ordered the fires. The friars, led by men like Diego de Landa in the Yucatan and Toribio de Benavente Motolinia in the highlands, stacked your histories like logs and burned them in the name of salvation. They believed they were saving souls, but you knew they were burning a people. The flames devoured entire libraries, hundreds of codices, each one containing centuries of wisdom. The names of kings, the movements of stars, the cures for fevers, the rituals of rain, the poems to lost loves, the births and deaths of your people. They burned you to erase you. What survived, but not everything, was lost. A few codices were hidden, buried in caves, tucked in the folds of old mantles, smuggled to Europe by curious priests or stolen by collectors. Today, fewer than 20 pre-Columbian codices survive. Each one is a miracle. You see them now behind museum glass, quiet, fragile, incomplete. There is the Codex Borgia, filled with cosmic imagery, gods devouring time, fire serpents consuming the earth, a calendar of divine cycles stretching back into eternity. No writing. Just pure image. There is the Codex Borbonicus, a priest's tool, filled with rituals and the sacred Tonalpohualli calendar, the 260-day cycle that dictated births, marriages, harvests, war. There is the Codex Mendoza, created for a Spanish king, chronicling tribute from Aztec provinces, images of rulers in procession, young boys being punished, warriors ascending through ranks, annotated in Spanish, a strange hybrid of empire and conqueror, and the Florentine Codex, a towering work of translation and preservation created by Fray Bernardino de Sahagún and dozens of Nahua scribes and scholars. It tells your world in both Nahuatl and Spanish, customs, foods, gods, omens, natural history, and most tragically, the conquest itself. They are fractured, filtered through European eyes, sometimes censored or misunderstood. But they are still you, reading the past through. Fire, you sit in a university archive now. A scholar wears gloves and whispers reverently as she opens the Codex Borgia. Her voice trembles. This is how they thought. This is how they saw the world. She's right. You did not separate art from science, religion from time, self from universe. The codices show a cosmos where everything is connected, where Tlaloc rules not only the rain, but the laughter of children, where death is not an end but a doorway. You did not write for permanence, you wrote for continuity. Each glyph passed on not just information, but identity. And though the fires tried to destroy that identity, the codices resist even now. They whisper to modern readers, historians, artists, children of the diaspora, who trace their own bloodlines in ink and symbol. You see young students now tattooing glyphs on their arms. Warriors, suns, the day sign of their birth. A new kind of codex, one written on flesh, and you smile, because memory never dies, it just changes form. The codices of the body. You once believed that history lived in paper and stone. But you have come to understand something deeper. The true codices are not just books, they are bodies. Every Nahua child who learns their birth sign, whether they are a jaguar, a reed, a wind, or a house, is a living codex. Every grandmother who speaks Nahuatl to her grandson is a living codex. Every dancer who steps in the old patterns, every weaver who knots maize-colored thread, every cook who grinds cacao on a stone metate, they are all writing history with their hands, their feet, their breath. You realize now that you never disappeared. You simply became embodied, and that is something no fire can touch. The revival of a script. In the 21st century, something astonishing happens. Scholars, artists, and descendants of the Mexica begin to recreate the old writing. They use surviving glyphs, cross-reference codices, decode forgotten meanings. A new Nahuatl script begins to form. Not colonial, not modern, but reborn. They call it neo-codical writing. Some criticize it, say it's invented, inauthentic. But you know better. You know that all writing begins with memory and need. The ancient Tlahuiloque did not copy. They created. They interpreted dreams. They gave symbols to silence. So too do these modern scribes. They publish new codices, not just histories, but comics, graphic novels, digital interfaces. One group in Oaxaca builds an app to teach day signs and calendar cycles. Another in Los Angeles releases a street art zine written entirely in revived glyphs. You are not simply being studied. You are being continued. What was lost? What was found? You will never recover all the knowledge lost to flames. You will never. I read the Codex of Flowers, said to hold the poems of Nezahualcoyotl in full. You will never see the Codex of Sorrows burned in Texcoco that chronicled the mourning of the people after Moctezuma's death. You will never hear the chants that once accompanied the Codex of Corn. or know the exact shade of blue used for the goddess Chalhutliku's cloak. But you have found something else. You have found the will to remember, to reconstruct, to resist oblivion. And that will is more powerful than paper. It is the will to be unburnable. The Codex of Tomorrow. One day you sit at a table with your granddaughter. She asks, "Abuelo, who were the Mexica?" You smile and pull out a brush, not to paint a memory, but to create one. You draw her day sign, then the glyph for her name. You tell her how the sun is reborn every day. You show her how to fold the page, how to chant the calendar, how to speak to the rain. She listens with wide eyes, nodding slowly. She is your codex now. She is your continuity, and in her, you are eternal.
Chapter 9. Of Obsidian and Empire. You hold it in your hand, and it gleams like a frozen night. Obsidian, a mirror of black volcanic glass, sharp enough to split flesh, clear enough to see your soul. This is not just a tool, not just a blade. It is a symbol, a weapon, a god's gift. From it you carved an empire. Obsidian is everywhere in your world, embedded in your knives, your spears, your rituals, and your myths. To understand the Aztec Empire is to understand obsidian, beautiful, brittle, brutal, and radiant with mystery. It begins not with conquest, it begins with Tezcatlipoca. Tezcatlipoca, the smoking mirror. You stare into the mirror, and it stares back. Tezcatlipoca, Lord of the night sky, is the god of change, conflict, and destiny. His name means smoking mirror, and his weapon, his emblem, his eye, is obsidian. You feel his presence when smoke curls above the temples, when battle drums pound through, the alleys when ambition stirs in your chest. He is the one who takes away to give anew. He breaks worlds to create others. In the myths he walks with a jaguar's gait, cloaked in stars, with an obsidian mirror for a foot, lost in battle, yet turned into a portal to see the fates of men. When your priests conjure visions, they gaze into polished obsidian discs. When warriors receive omens, they look to shards of black stone to glimpse the future. When rulers pray for power, they invoke Tezcatlipoca to harden their hearts. And when death comes, it often comes on an obsidian blade. The empire of knives obsidian shaped your warfare. Unlike the iron swords of the Europeans, you wielded macuahuitl, wooden clubs lined with razor-sharp obsidian blades, capable of cleaving a horse's head or slicing through flesh like wind through silk. These were not crude weapons. They were elegant, terrifying, sacred. Each macuahuitl was a fusion of artistry and lethality, its blades set like jagged teeth. They were not meant for slaughter alone, but for capture, to maim rather than kill, to wound and subdue, to feed the eternal machine of ritual sacrifice. For war was not simply about domination, it was about balance. Each enemy captured fed your gods, your calendar, your survival. Each obsidian blade that drew blood was a needle sewing together cosmos and community. You remember the wars, the flower wars, ritualized battles designed to capture warriors from rival city-states like Tlaxcala, Huexotzinco, and Cholula. These were not wars of territory, but of tribute in blood, and obsidian was always the first to touch flesh. The trade in shadows, but obsidian was not only sacred, it was economic. You controlled the mines, the markets, the craftsmen. From Pachuca and Otumba came green and black obsidian, shimmering with hues like oil on water. Your traders, Pochteka, carried these stones across Mesoamerica, exchanging them for cacao, jade, quetzal feathers, gold, and slaves. In the great Tlatelolco market, thousands of obsidian blades glinted under the sun, stacked in bundles, displayed on reed mats. There were tools for farmers, weapons for warriors, knives for priests, mirrors for seers. It was your steel. In a world without iron, obsidian was your edge. More fragile, yes, but sharper than any European sword. It did not bend. It cut clean. And with it you carved roads, shaped temples, opened chests, and ruled. Rituals of the blade, you remember the ceremonies. You stand atop the Templo Mayor, the sacred twin pyramid that rises like a mountain in the heart of Tenochtitlan. The sun climbs behind you. The drums echo across the lake. Before you, a prisoner is laid upon the stone. Your hands do not tremble. You reach for the tek paddle, the sacrificial knife, its obsidian blade polished to a mirror's sheen. You raise it high, chant the names of the gods, and plunge. The heart is offered while still beating. Smoke rises, blood feeds the sun. To outsiders, it is horror. To you, it is necessity. Without the blood, the sun does not rise. Without the blade, time stops. The cosmos hangs in balance, and the obsidian blade is the pivot point. This is not murder. It is sacred economy. It is cosmic maintenance. It is empire. The stone that sees. But obsidian was not always a weapon. It was a mirror. In it, your priests saw visions. Your king saw fate. Your enemies saw their doom. It was used in childbirth ceremonies, placed beneath the bed of the laboring mother to guide the soul of the newborn. It was carved into ear spools, into nose rings, into delicate figurines of gods and monsters. It held magic. Even today, centuries after the fall, people whisper about the power of obsidian mirrors. In villages across Mexico, curanderos, healers, still use them to peer into the soul, to diagnose spiritual illness, to call back lost pieces of the self. Obsidian is memory. Obsidian is truth. But truth, like the blade, cuts both ways, the shattering you. Remember the moment it changed. Cortez arrived with steel and horses and fire. He brought cannons that echoed louder than thunder, and swords that did not break. Your macuahuitl shattered against their armor. Your obsidian knives dulled against their shields. In the final battles, you saw your warriors swing with all their might, only for their blades to splinter against the metal plates of the conquistadors. You watched obsidian scatter like black stars across the blood-soaked soil. And yet, though steel won the war, it did not end the stone. You pick up a broken blade now, centuries later. You turn it in your hand. The edge is gone, but the meaning remains. This shard is a story. It remembers, and so do you. Legacy of the blade. In the 21st century, obsidian is no longer a weapon of war, but it is still revered. Artisans in the Valley of Mexico still shape it with fire and stone. They make jewelry, masks, polished mirrors. Tourists buy trinkets, curanderos buy power, scholars buy clues, and you, descendant of empire, buy identity. You wear an obsidian pendant around your neck. It is not for style. It is not for sale. It is for memory. It connects you to Tezcatlipoca, to the warrior priests of Tenochtitlan, to the obsidian bloodline that runs through your veins. You do not need it to kill. You need it to remember, to resist forgetting, to cut through the fog of colonial history, to pierce the silence, to reflect a future where your past is not shame, but strength. Obsidian is no longer your sword, it is your mirror. And in that mirror, you see your empire, not as ruins, but as reflection. Chapter 10. The city on the lake. You stand upon water, but you do not sink. Beneath your feet, stone dances atop the surface of a vast lake, silent, silver blue at dawn, pulsing with canoes and color by midday, aflame with torches at night. This is Tenochtitlan, your home, your jewel, your beating heart. A city floating on a lake, a miracle of empire, a vision made real. No one who sets foot here for the first time ever forgets it. Not the merchants, not the warriors, not the priests, not even the foreigners who would one day destroy it. You, who were born of this water, of this land, know its rhythm like a drum. Every street is a causeway, every causeway a prayer, every garden a triumph of life over the impossible. This is where it all began and where it would all end. The dream on the water, you remember the prophecy. A great sign, they said, where the eagle sits on the cactus, devouring the serpent. That is where you shall build your city. And so, in the middle of the sacred Lake Texcoco, on a cluster of muddy islets surrounded by shimmering water, your ancestors saw it. The eagle, the cactus, the snake. Here, they said. Here, we begin. But what they saw was not what others saw. Others saw only water and mud, too shallow to sail, too deep to walk, too full of birds and reeds and biting flies. But you saw a capital. Your people drove stakes into the lakebed, built chinampas, floating gardens, from reeds and soil, lashed together rafts of earth to grow maize, chilies, squash, beans. They raised temples on artificial islands, dug canals, built aqueducts that curved like ribbons over the waves. Stone by stone, they lifted a metropolis from the lake. The splendor of Tenochtitlan, you walk through its streets now. The city stretches farther than the eye can see, more than 200,000 souls, making it one of the largest cities on earth in your time. Grand boulevards run straight as spears. Wide canals carry boats like rivers of commerce. At their intersections stand bridges, drawn up at night to protect the city's core. Markets bloom with noise and color. Cacao beans traded for obsidian knives, cotton for jade, feathers for gold. You pass merchants, nobles, warriors, slaves. You hear music, flutes, drums, the deep tones of conch shells. The buildings rise white and radiant in the sun, made of limestone and volcanic stone. Murals cover the walls in sacred reds and ochres. Palaces for the nobles, schools for the priests, gardens for the gods. At the heart of it all towers the Templo Mayor, the twin pyramid temple to Huitzilopochtli, god of war, and Tlaloc, god of rain. This is not a city. This is a cosmos made solid. Its four quarters mirror the four directions. Its center is the navel of the world. It is not only geography, it is theology. You are not just living in Tenochtitlan, you are living within a myth made manifest. Waterways and wonders. You step aboard a canoe, rowed by strong hands through canals lined with chinampas. The floating gardens surround you in green. They're masterpieces of engineering. Man-made islands layered with mud and lake sediment, bordered by willow trees whose roots bind the earth. You run your fingers through the water, clean and clear, fed by distant springs brought through, aqueducts that arch across the lake like the spine of a serpent. Two great aqueducts carry fresh water to the city, one always flowing, the other in reserve for repairs. You pass beneath wooden bridges. You see children swimming inside canals, ducks and herons wading among the reeds. You smell maize cakes frying on stones, flowers for sale in boats, incense burning in shrines. This is not Venice. This is something older, greener, alive. A city that breathes water and exhales stone. The empire's capital from Tenochtitlan. The empire radiates. Messengers run in relays to every border. Tribute flows in from vassal states. Cotton, cacao, feathers, salt, warriors. The city eats what the empire feeds it, and in return, it bleeds for the gods. You see tribute lists painted on codices. 100 baskets of maize from one province, 1,000 cloaks from another. Warriors march through its streets, bearing trophies, captives, banners of conquest. Diplomats come to negotiate, spies to listen, enemies to envy. Tenochtitlan is not only a city, it is a machine, a mechanism for sustaining faith, war, and power. Its walls sing with pride. Its stones remember every step. You feel the empire's pulse here. The great festivals, you are there on the day of Tlaquexipehualistli, the flaying festival of the god Totec. You see prisoners tied to stone discs in the sacred courtyard, forced to fight Aztec warriors armed with real weapons, while they are given only feathered mock blades. You hear the crowd chant. You hear the drums thunder. Blood runs down the steps of the Templo Mayor. Flayed skins hang in doorways as symbols of rebirth. Then comes the Panquetzalitzli, the festival of Huitzilopochtli, the sun god and patron of the city. You witness the reenactments, the rituals, the dancers dressed as gods. You climb the pyramid's 100 steps, smell copal incense, and see hearts offered to the sky. These are not cruel spectacles. They are acts of cosmic renewal. Without them, the sun dies, time stops, the city crumbles. You participate because you must, because you believe. The fall, but the lake could not protect you. Not forever. The strangers came with metal and beasts and disease. They saw your city and could not believe. It was built by what they called savages. They saw your temples and thought them nests of devils. They saw your gods and called them demons. They betrayed your emperor. They slaughtered your priests. They laid siege to the very city they had once admired. The causeways that once welcomed trade became death traps. The canals clogged with blood. The floating gardens burned. The aqueducts were cut. The people starved. You fought back. You held the temples. You watched the city flood with violence. But in the end, Tenochtitlan fell, not to might alone, but to disease, to deception, to division among your allies, and to a dream too beautiful to last. The city on the lake, once glowing with life, was reduced to rubble and ash. The memory in the stones, but Tenochtitlan was never truly lost. Its stones were buried, but not broken. Its memory survived in stories, in songs, in blood. Today, beneath the streets of Mexico City, its ruins still breathe. The Templo Mayor has risen again, rebuilt by archaeologists, reclaimed by descendants. The canals still flow in Xochimilco, where the chinampas bloom and the water reflects the sky. You walk those modern streets, but you feel the ancient ones beneath. Every step echoes with ghostly footsteps. Every church was built with temple stones. Every plaza was once a palace. You look into the water and see the eagle again, the cactus, the serpent, and in that reflection, you see not a past that vanished. You see a present that remembers. Epilogue. You are the city. You are the descendant of warriors and weavers, of priests and poets, of those who floated cities upon water and lifted gods into the sky. You are Tenochtitlan, not a ruin, not a relic, but a spirit that survives conquest, time, and silence. In your language, your skin, your heart, the city still lives. The canals still flow through your veins. The songs still echo in your breath. You are not a footnote in someone else's history. You are a chapter of your own. And when the world looks upon the eagle on the cactus once more, they do not see a myth. They see you, the child of the lake, the city that would not drown.